One of the things usually kind of starts hitting in the halfway, maybe to the last half of this process. You're going to hear the phrase validation calls. This is when you have an opportunity to speak with existing owners of that franchise that you are talking to. Okay. You legally have the right to talk to every single franchise owner in the system. You have their contact information. It is all in the franchise disclosure document that you will have already received at this point. Hello, everyone, and thanks again for tuning in to the latest edition of Fran Coach's Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of Fran Coach and your podcast host. Today, it is little old me coming at you, and I'm going to talk to you about one aspect of the process, kind of the discovery process our clients go through, called validation calls. We've talked about these a few different times. They're hugely important and impactful. But we're going to talk about 4 little tricks and things to think about on these calls. So that's today. Before we get to that, a quick reminder of who we are. Fran Coach is a national search firm dedicated to working with individuals interested in owning a franchise. We are partnered with well over 600 of the top franchisors in the country, spanning nearly 70 industries. Our number one goal is to properly educate you on franchise ownership to determine if this is the path for you. And if so, goal number 2 is to help you find your absolute best franchise to own. That's us. Now let's chat. So validation calls. Let's back up for a little bit. So when we get people connected to franchises, we've already gone through a couple steps to really build out their ideal business model, owner role, all sorts of intangibles that go with this, right? So then we're going to connect them to the franchises, and we commonly refer to that as the discovery process. So that is a 6 to 8 week mutual vetting process with the franchisors. There's upwards of anywhere from 10 to 15 different steps along the way. You're going to talk with me and our team throughout all of that to help make sure nothing gets missed throughout that, because it is a lot. And so one of the things usually kind of starts hitting in the halfway, maybe to the last half of this process. You're going to hear the phrase validation calls. So what is this? Well, this is when you have an opportunity to speak with existing owners of that franchise that you are talking to. Okay. So you legally have the right to talk to every single franchise owner in the system. You have their contact information. It is all in the franchise disclosure document that you will have already received at this point. So could you talk to every one of them? Absolutely. You have their info. Would that be a little crazy? It would probably be a lot crazy. Incredibly time consuming. You'd blow that 6 to 8 week time frame out of the water. Most franchises will do some sort of kind of an introduction to you to the franchise owners that you're going to speak with. Every now and then they're going to have kind of scheduled calls, usually in systems that are a little bit smaller. They do that just so their owners don't revolt because they got all these people calling them when there's only 20 owners. When it's a system that's, 100, 200, 500 owners around the country, it's easier for that franchise to kind of match you with people, similar background, personality, geographically, and usually get a chance to talk to people, newer in the system, the ones that have been around forever. You want to kind of get a range of this. There is a myth sometimes that, the franchise, they're sending everybody to these same 3 owners because they're the only 3 owners out of the 300 that don't suck and don't hate it. That's not true. Again, when they're connecting you one-on-one, they are really trying to kind of match and give you a range. When you're working with our team, we are making sure that they are doing that for you, right? So what's going to happen? The other thing, if I back up for a second, I mentioned you could call every single one, right? So, but here's the thing that's going to happen. If you just go through the FDD and you start cold calling owners, assume for a second that they answer the phone. All right. So now I'm calling owners from franchise X. Franchise X is a painting franchise. So hey Bob, this is Tim. Just wanted to ask you a bunch of very detailed questions about your business. You got 30 minutes to share that with me? Bob's gonna go, who the hell are you, dude? Why are you calling me? No, no, I promise I'm just thinking about becoming a franchise owner. Bob doesn't know me, right? I'm gonna start asking financial questions. I'm gonna start asking all things about the business. Tell me about the marketing. Uh, Bob's not gonna tell me anything. He doesn't know who I am. I could be one of his competitors trying to get some inside scoop, right? So that's where again, can you do that? Yes, but it is not super recommended. Right. So now when we get a chance to talk to owners, they're called validation calls for a reason. You're going to have at this point multiple conversations with the franchisor, learning the basics of their brand, what your role is as an owner, all the different support mechanisms that they have in place to help you out. And so you're hearing that usually from one person, kind of whoever's in charge of their franchise development. But hey, that person might be a dirty, dirty liar, right? So let's validate what we have heard by talking to owners. Okay. Owners, I'm going to say they don't care if you become a franchise owner, right? That franchise development person, it's kind of their job to find new owners. They're not selling you on becoming a franchise owner. They're selling you the virtue of their brand and trying to vet you to see if you're a match. So it is an important distinction there. But franchise owners, like, they're not they legally can't be compensated for having that call with you in any way, shape, or form. Um, but if anything, they're the ones that are going to be more protective of the brand. They're talking to me about their painting franchise and what it's like. They're checking me out too. Because if they think I'm going to be some big buffoon coming into their system, like they're going to get back on the phone with that Fran Dev person and go, man, that dude is no way do we want him in my system, in our system. Pronouns really start to change at that point, right? So when you're on the phone, you're going to if you can think about talking to three or four owners, you're usually going to get enough of a cross section of information. Not every owner are you going to be able to ask every single question you have. Not every owner is going to be great talking about things. One owner may be fantastic about everything financial down to the penny off the top of their head. The next person really has no clue about that, right? But they're probably going to be better talking about maybe the marketing or the operations or the sales, the staffing, whatever else is maybe their thing, right? Getting to talk to somebody a little bit newer, somebody older. If you're, maybe use an example, a landscape franchise. Don't talk to everybody in the South. Talk to somebody in the North, right? How's that seasonality play into it? Things like that, right? But there's really four buckets of questions that we want people to have. And kind of to focus on. And everybody's going to have their list. Like we had somebody a few years ago and they sent it to me, literally had 117 questions on a spreadsheet. I'm like, woo, we're going to be here a while, right? And come to find out, we could really kind of lump those into four, five, six things. So it helped kind of, again, kind of create some focus with this. But what are we really trying to find out, right? We're trying to find out the number one thing is the get out of bed test, right? So you want to understand what is that day in the life? Yeah. I know what the friend dev person told me, but what are you really doing, right? You may talk to one owner of that painting franchise that's semi-absentee. Oh, I'm going to be full time. How am I going to learn from that semi-absentee owner? Well, they had to hire somebody that was running the day to day. What did they look for in that person they were hiring? Does that align with what I want to do as a full-time owner? You may get something, usually not in a painting franchise, but I'm gonna use this as an example. Maybe man, I love painting. I'm a great painter, right? And so you may talk to some owner that's a little bit more in the field, a little bit more of a doer than maybe they should be. You're going to talk to some different kind of personalities behind this. Maybe somebody really takes more of an operational path. Another person is a great networker and connector. You're going to hear these different cross sections, right? But what does that day in a life look like? You talk to three or four owners, you're going to start to get some consistency with that. And again, hopefully it is validating what you've already heard. So that day in a life, that's number one. Again, that goes back to the get out of bed test, the most important thing in finding your fit, right? So the franchise tells me They are going to support me. They're going to have things from, training, onboarding, marketing, operations. Oh, the software and the technology. We're going to use AI to be able to do, super fast quotes, things like that. Well, that's what the Fran Dev person said. Now let's talk to the owner, right? Talk to me about the support, right? Has it met your expectations? And I think in one thing in particular, we always tell people to maybe not ask or be careful to phrase it this way. Have you gotten a lot of support from the franchisor? Okay, is that a good question? Well, what if somebody says no? Does that then kind of not validate everything you've heard from the FranDev person on how amazing the support is? Maybe, but maybe that's an owner that's just like, I don't need much, right? They're out there. Yeah, they trained me. They showed me how to do it. I'm going out and I'm figuring stuff out and I'm doing it. So have they gotten a lot of support? No. Did they need it or want it? Also, no, right? Has it met your expectations? When you need it, is it there for you? Right? Somebody else might be super needy, right? So you want to be able to go, hey, when it is there, do you have people to call? Is there just one person? Does it take 4 days for them to get back to you? Or do you have 6 different people for 6 different topics? Oh, it's marketing, I got to call Stacy. It's operations, I'm calling Dave, right? Back and forth with whoever that is, right? Also in a system, can I call other owners? Do you guys all talk to each other? Right? So I'm running into a situation. Nobody knows the business. If I'm a franchise owner, nobody knows the business and what I'm going through better than other owners, right? As you're doing those validation calls with the owners, hey, do you guys talk to each other? Right? What's that like? Is there something within the franchise system that fosters that type of communication and collaboration? If so, great. If not, well, do you sell some people? Are owners open to, if I pick up the phone and call you 6 months from now as I'm getting launched, are you going to take my call? Are you going to talk to me? Right? That's the support piece. Hey everyone, I want to take a moment to spotlight one of our premier franchise partners, First Team. First Team is a content restoration company. What is a content restoration company, you might ask? Well, everyone is familiar with the companies that come clean up the mess after an emergency, like a fire or a flood. Those companies come clean up the mess and put your house back to livable, but they don't touch your actual stuff. First Team is there for what really matters, your stuff. Like furniture, clothes, photo albums, even your killer collection of baseball cards. Since it's easier to repair than replace, insurance companies love First Team, and all of those emergency restoration companies you see everywhere, not only are they not your competition, but they are your referral partners. Also, since First Team doesn't do the emergency part, their owners enjoy a great 9-to-5 type of lifestyle business, a steady stream of insurance and referral-based customers, and as part of Empower Brands, First Team owners receive training and support that is second to none. Here at Fran Coach, we'd love to help you find the perfect franchise to own, and maybe, just maybe, it is First Team. So get in touch with us today to learn more about becoming a First Team franchise owner, and let us help you create your better tomorrow. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a quick break from our podcast to tell you about our amazing friends at Entrepreneur. If you're looking to become a franchisee or simply learn more about business ownership, and guys, let's be honest, you're listening to the Franchising 101 podcast, so we know you have some interest in this. And I really encourage you to go to entrepreneur.com to check out all of their great content and resources. Seriously, Entrepreneur has everything, all the way from a bookstore to the best podcasts, webinars, and videos, plus information on upcoming events and the latest articles that seriously, they cover all aspects of franchising and business ownership. If you're having trouble deciding which franchise is right for you, start with Entrepreneur's renowned Franchise 500 ranking, which highlights the best franchises of 2022. For 45 years and counting now, Entrepreneur has been and continues to be the most widely recognized and respected authority in the franchise market. Digital and print subscriptions are available, so you never miss out on anything. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Go to entrepreneur.com right now and learn more. And then one thing I always like to ask Um, would you do it all over again? So as I'm talking to the owner, they're telling me whatever it might be. Great. Based on what you know now, would you do this all over again? And kind of why or why not? Right. So most of the time, what you're going to hear is they're going to say, yes, I would, but I would do this differently. Dot, dot, dot. Okay. Every time that they're doing that, one, they're telling you that yes, even if they were like having a bad day and like, man, this sucks sometimes, or staffing was blah blah blah, or really struggle to whatever their issues are. Because again, folks, franchise ownership is not all rainbows and unicorns. Okay, so there are going to be some bad days, but again, that goes back to wanting that control of being in charge to figure stuff out. Right. So you ask the owner, would you do this all over again? And in most cases, they're going to say yes, but I would do this differently. Pay attention, right? Because what they're really going to do is they're going to give you an idea of something that they personally struggled with, probably did wrong at the beginning. In almost every case, what they're really doing, they're ratting themselves out, folks. They're telling you one part or a couple parts of the plan that the franchise laid out that they just either ignored, forgot, went, nah, like, I don't need that. I got it. Kind of got kicked in the teeth a little bit and then got back on the rails with it. Okay. So it becomes great validation, that kind of negative. I would do this again. Great validation for everything that you've heard so far. Follow the plan, put forth the effort, right? I'll give you a couple of examples. We had somebody not so long ago literally answered that question, no, right? And the reason, look, well, why not? Like, yeah, I've didn't have a bad experience with the franchisor. The owner literally said, like, I wasn't completely honest with myself on what I wanted to do every day. And this isn't it. I can do it, but I don't get a ton of joy out of it. So it's been a little bit more of a grind for me. Okay. He's still going. He's not selling or anything like that, but it really kind of again validated back to get out of bed test, right? We had another owner years ago, or one of our clients was talking to an owner, and they had been in business for almost 10 years, was one of the top owners in the system. And the owner was just negative, right? About everything was so hard. We were working our ass off. The staff was terrible. That like everything was just awful. Now, mind you, it was a senior care franchise. This owner was doing over $10 million a year in revenue, right? And just that negative, negative, negative about everything. It was challenging, it was hard, all of this stuff. So our client is like, yikes, right? So she asked the next question, would you do this all over again? And all of a sudden the owner just perks up. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, it's been the best thing I've ever done. Our franchise agreement is about to renew. We're totally renewing for another 5 years. Like but it was that owner was a very kind of type A driver, never ever happy. Probably part of the reason why she was doing over $10 million a year in revenue, right? So again, ask the question, get that why, right? And then what's the last bucket, right? So day in a life, support, would you do this all over again? And number four, money, right? So again, it's a great fit from me, the get out of bed test. The support really is there from multiple angles. The people would do it all over again. So even when there have been struggles, they've gotten through it. They're happy they did it. Control of their life. You're going to hear things kind of in those reasons that are the same why, like whys for you looking at this, right? Well, that's great. Am I going to make any freaking money? Right? So, how do we handle the financial question of this? And again, we want to be smart in how we ask the question. Let me give an example of not smart. Hey, you make any money at this? Like, come on, let's think through this a little bit. Yes, we want to know that, but there's a lot of different factors to this. Um, do you make any money at this? That could be an owner that's been in the business for 3 years that maybe doesn't pay themselves anything or compensates them very little from the business because they have a spouse that's basically like making enough money to pay all the bills at the house. The business is they're taking that money to continue to reinvest and grow and grow and grow. Okay. There may be another person that takes every stinking dime out every single way. Like every month, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm paying all the bills of the business and I'm yanking everything else out of there. Right. Or running. And then we've probably talked about this before. We had an owner was looking at a resale last year. They were like bottom line, like $2 million. It was a home service brand, big to about $2 million a year, year over year, revenue wise. But bottom line was basically zero, right? I'm like, how's that possible? Well, they were running the owner and the spouse were running about $325,000 a year in salary for them. They had four different cars, they had cell phones, they had all sorts of personal expenses running through that business that ended up being about $600,000 worth of owner compensation, right? And then the business looked like it was barely making any money, which means their tax liability was significantly less, right? So how do we get a handle on the business? We have to ask smart questions. Let's understand, how much does it cost for you to run the business every month? Like, what are your expenses? Take out your owner comp piece for a second. Just the things to run the business. Do I need some sort of a location? Do I have vehicles? Do I have equipment? Do I have staff? Do I have stuff? Marketing, right? All of the things that I know that I have to pay for to run this business. Then let's talk about the revenue. How do you make money? Is it I sell cheeseburgers and my average ticket is $12? Okay. Is it back to that painting franchise and it's a $5,000 average ticket? Okay. My expenses are maybe we found out it's 30 grand a month to run the business and $5,000 a month or $5,000 average ticket. Okay. Well, 5,000 times six. I need six jobs, right? That's $30,000 to pay the bills. And then everything after that, guess what, folks, is your money. So we want to ask smart questions to understand, again, what are my costs and fees? We should have started to do a little bit of a pro forma by this time from everything that's in the FDD. There's revenue stuff in the FDD, but it's a little murky on what that is, which is why we want to use these validation calls to ask, again, intelligent, smart, pointed questions that get us the answers we need. How much does this sucker cost? How do I make money? This is how much it costs me to run the business every month. I need to make at least that much money. How fast can I do that reasonably? How fast did every owner get to that break-even point where I don't have to put my money into the business anymore? That's the goal, right? I mean, that's the first goal. There's bigger goals down the road, but that's it. So when we're having those calls, day in a life, support, would they do it all over again, which is going to kind of validate the whole system again. And then money, what's it cost me, right? Realistically, to get this started, what's it cost me to run this day to day? And what's that revenue model, right? That's what matters. That's where you're going to get done with those calls. And now you're really on the back end of the stretch. There may be a couple little follow-up calls, but at that point, we're really targeting to meet the team day, discovery day, whatever that term is to get there. So when we have those validation calls for all the questions you want to ask, if we can really just keep it in those four buckets, it keeps it simple. It keeps us on target. It allows us to be able to talk to one owner who maybe can't rattle off that financial stuff. Some people may not want to talk about it. Okay, tell me more about the support. Tell me more about a day in a life, right? Talk about some of the struggles at the beginning with why would you do this again? Next owner is going to be, they're going to dive into the financials, send you a pro forma, right? So we're getting that good cross section of information from the owners. Really gives you great peace of mind. So the validation calls are an amazing part of this. It is why they are done typically towards the end, because at the beginning you just don't have enough information to ask smart questions. You end up asking things like, how much money did you make? Not helping any way, shape, or form understand what it takes to be able to do this. So those are the validation calls. Those are things that, again, that our team at FranCoach, we're going to help you with all along the way. You should never, ever be on your own with this. So that's validation calls. As always, as we go through this and every podcast, I hope that it helps shed some light into what this is all about and the amazing possibilities. And in this case, how we go through this to make sure you're finding your best fit. Reach out to us, folks. We're not going anywhere. We are here to help you. There's never, ever any fee for our service. francoach.net, franchising101podcast.net. Again, we're called Franchising 101 is the podcast, but our team is Fran Coach. You're going to talk, more than likely, you're going to be stuck with me, but maybe somebody else on the Fran Coach team as well. We are here to help you, be able to see if we can do this, right? And help you create your better tomorrow. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk with you soon.